All right, so let's get right into today's guests. We have Lori Simmons on. Welcome, Lori. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate that. And we also have Alderman Michael Rodriguez. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate this.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you both for coming on. As I said at the opening, this is probably one of the most exciting episode that I've been actually looking forward to have you both on. I think the pendulum has swung way too far towards the TNCs and the DNCs way. And if it's legislation and such as yours that's coming up that we're going to talk about, I'm all for it. I'm going to push with everything I have for legislation to aid the gig workers. Now, I will have Alderperson Michael Rodriguez and Lori introduce themselves, and then we'll go into the details.
Well, thanks for having us, Sergio and Chris. It's quite the pleasure to be here in the Windy City, America's greatest city. And we are so excited to be working in an environment of co-governance here in our great city of Chicago. We've elected progressive mayor in Brandon Johnson. Our city council, out of 50, now has 19 members of the Progressive Caucus, of which I share as the whip. And in the infinite wisdom of Mayor Johnson and my colleagues, they have named me the chair of the Workforce Development Committee here in the city of Chicago. So we just got one fair wage done, working on paid leave enhancements for folks in the city of Chicago. And of course, we are working to make RideShare better for the riders. The fact is, the workers do better in our great town. Everyone does better. I'm the child of immigrants. My dad was a third shift truck driver, Teamster union member. My mom was a federal union employee. And the fact is, those jobs, those good jobs, allowed for me and my siblings to go to college and build a better life. And now, as an alderperson in the city of Chicago, I want to make that happen for my community. And what better way than the brothers and sisters that are doing God's work, transporting us day in and day out throughout our great city, throughout our great country.
Thank you. And how about you, Lori?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So I'm a gig worker organizer with Chicago Gig Alliance, which is a project of the People's Lobby. We're a progressive nonprofit here in Chicago. And I was a full-time rideshare driver, just doing Uber and Lyft for about 5 years up until the pandemic hit, when a lot of things changed, and I ended up moving into becoming an organizer full-time. But, you know, this was a big game changer for me. I mean, rideshare and I think myself and a lot of people, you know, it kind of gave us the opportunity to kind of take some of our autonomy back in a lot of ways. And, you know, the drivers who have been on the platform for a really long time know the specific kind of heartbreak that we have seeing the pay going the way that it has been going, and seeing our friends and the people that we care about losing access to the app, you know, on a whim, you know, on things that, you know, are easily, you know, disprovable. One of my best friends who actually got me into driving rideshare in the first place actually just lost his account, his ability to drive on Uber not that long ago, based on the facial recognition technology claiming that his face doesn't match his face anymore. So, you know, it's very close to my heart, these issues. And, you know, the ordinance that we've put together has been based on a lot of feedback from workers, you know, thousands and thousands of conversations that we've had with workers here in Chicago. You know, even, you know, talking to people in other cities and engaging, you know, how their ordinances were successful and how we can make ours better. So I'm really excited about what we can achieve here. And also, as Alderman Rodriguez pointed out, we're really on the forefront right now of progressive politics here in Chicago. So this is a really exciting time, and I'm really glad to be here to talk about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. You just mentioned deactivation. So before I forget, please email me his name and email address. Let's see if we can do something about his face not matching the AI software that they have over there.
Yes.
Without, extending this, obviously, you know, our audience watched it in thousands. I interviewed the CEO of Lyft, Mr. David Risher, about a week ago. And the things that are in your ordinance speak to about the three issues that I talked to him about, which is pay, obviously, which is unjust deactivations, just as Lori talked about, and driver safety. So let's just jump right in. I mean, tell us about the ordinance, what specifically it does in these topics, and then we'll continue after that.
Yeah, you want me to? All right.
Go ahead, Lori.
All me. Yeah. So yes, there are three main big pieces, and that is pay, worker safety, and deactivation protection. So for pay, what we've done is it's increasing the per mile per minute pay. Right now, we don't have a pay scale. They eliminated our pay scale earlier this year, but we used to be getting paid about 60 cents a mile. Which was criminally low considering the mileage reimbursement is 58 cents a mile. So, or I guess it was at the time, but this pay increase would bring us back up in line with what, somebody in the transportation industry needs to be earning per mile in order to make a profit, and sort of take away some of the importance on relying on these, quests and games that we have to play in order to make our pay whole. We really just want to be paid fairly for every ride. So $1.85 a mile and 65 cents a minute is what the pay scale would go to. And this would be increased on a yearly basis. Something else that we have that other ordinances have not included in the past, but we think is really important is the commission cap. So, I'm sure drivers, if you look at your breakdowns, you'll notice Uber and Lyft are taking a lot of times 60%. It is a scale that changes, but I've seen the pay more and more often. The company is keeping more than half, and considering the fact that drivers are responsible for all of the cost of vehicle operation and our additional insurances that we have to purchase and everything else, it seems unsustainable. So our commission cap would cap what the companies can take at about 20%. Which historically is what they did take for a long time. I was grandfathered in at like 15% back from 2014. So not super crazy, but we feel the drivers are doing the bulk of the work and the most dangerous part of the work. So they should be getting compensated for that. And this would also create a worker assistance fund that would give drivers the ability to get, dash cams or safety equipment, get assistance purchasing those. And then as far as worker safety goes, the big thing is obviously we are very, very tired of not knowing who is in the vehicle with us. It's a very scary prospect. I know personally a lot of people who have been on the receiving end of assault from their passengers. And, when you try to do something about it, report it, or, contact somebody and the person's name is Bay or it's not a real name, you're obviously not going to get very far. And that person also can't be banned from the app because they don't actually know who that person is. So even if you contact the company and say, look, my passenger was violent towards me, all they're going to tell you is, oh, okay, well, we've removed them from the app. How do they even know who this person is? Lyft recently rolled out their women ordering women rides for women, which would be wonderful if we knew that was actually going to be how it worked. But since we don't actually check the identity of the passengers, nobody knows if the person ordering that ride is actually a woman. And I fear this puts drivers even in more danger. Now it's an easy button to just contact and have a woman show up, in a vehicle. So we want the companies to do their due diligence and to be able to verify the identity of the people using the app. And this could be as simple as having them upload some sort of ID. We don't want it to be, we don't want people to lose access to using the app, good customers, people who are using it fairly and safely. This isn't meant to be exclusive, but we do feel that it's important for the companies to know who is actually using the service to protect their workforce. So that is part of it. And then, the big one that we're hearing more and more about is deactivation. And, this wasn't such a big deal. If you look, back in time, 2016, 2017, we actually FOIA'd data from the city of Chicago to get a better understanding of what is going on with deactivations. Something changed in 2019. At the end of 2019, we went from having maybe 30 drivers deactivated in a month to hundreds and hundreds of drivers deactivated in a month. We don't even really know the reason for the change, but it has affected a lot of people's lives. And we actually released a deactivation report recently. So that information will be available to people on our website, and you can see the impact that it's had. We're talking thousands of workers a month at this point, based on the most recent data that we've gotten, and that's only deactivations that are being reported. Many of them are not. These are just the ones that are being reported to the city of Chicago because they're considered safety issues. So there's thousands and thousands more that are going unreported and unchecked into. So, this we feel is going to go a long way to making workers safer, making this job sustainable, and bringing back the hope that a lot of us felt, in the early days of working for these companies, that, maybe there's a future. It makes no sense that Uber has just become profitable. And in order to do so, they had to wipe out a profitable industry and then stop paying their workers. And that was the only way that they were able to make ends meet, as it were. So, we're really excited about this.
Yeah. I mean, these are all things actually drivers have been asking for almost a decade now. So we know what's happening with pay. Mr. Rodriguez, so what would you add to Lori's, and where is the proposal now? Where do we stand as far as the application of it, and when the vote should be expected, things like that, I guess are in your field.
So just to step back quickly, we have an economy that's doing fairly well under President Biden. We have a local economy here in the city of Chicago that's strong. I just saw data that our population has increased over the last several years. We have the Democratic National Convention coming to the city of Chicago. We have a new mayor that's a people's mayor on the side of movements and progressive politics, on the side of workers. Now is the time to make sure that the prosperity that our country is going through, that our city is going through, that we all share in that prosperity. The fact is that companies, no matter how they're funded, whether they're hedge funds or startups, they need to make a profit, and that's okay. But workers deserve respectable wages as well, and they deserve their piece of the pie as well. So I just wanted to say that as the preface to why we're partnering with the People's Lobby and the Chicago Gig Alliance, and why we're tackling pay, why we're tackling the deactivation process, why we're tackling the commission caps and surge caps, things of that nature. I think Lori explained the policy well, so I won't go too far in depth there. Excuse me. Upon introduction of the ordinance that I'm sponsoring, we were able to procure almost 30 signatures, co-sponsors of our 50-person body. The fact is that I do believe we have the votes to pass this ordinance. Over the next several weeks and months, we will be negotiating in vigor with the city and with the companies to get as good a policy as possible for the workers of the city of Chicago, for the drivers that so desperately need this legislation to be enacted. Look, opposition has already started. For the last several months, we've seen paid ads in some of our blogs and periodicals. We know the playbook, but the fact is that the people power that the Gig Alliance has organized, and that others are behind, it's winning the day. We just got rid of the sub-minimum wage here in the city of Chicago in a vote of 36-10. Now, over a 5-year period, restaurant workers will not be earning a sub-minimum wage, that we were earning tips on top of their wages. That happened through my committee and city council, with partnership, working with the mayor as one of his top priorities. This is the RideShare ordinance is also something our mayor campaigned on and supported, that I campaigned on and supported, that I've introduced in council, and we're going to get it past the finish line really soon. I would venture the bet that I would like to come back on this show in late winter, early spring of next year, with a big old trophy and the champion's belt for the most progressive rideshare ordinance in the country.
Right. So for both of you, let me play the devil's advocate, because whoever comes for interviews on the show, we don't do typical interviews, right? So, a lot of people just come on and expect softballs and things like that. Let me play Uber and Lyft for you guys a little bit, okay? As you said, the campaign has begun. You know their playbook. I know their playbook extremely well, right? So they're going to push a whole bunch of notifications in the driver app as well as the passenger app, saying to the driver, well, you're going to lose your flexibility. You're going to lose your freedom. This is not good for you. You're not going to be able to work. We're going to put you on schedules. You may even be employees. On the rider app, they're going to say, well, you're not going to be able to afford these trips now because these trips are going to quadruple or quintuple or double at least, right? And look how effectively they played that game in Minneapolis, where the mayor vetoed it ultimately after a passed ordinance. Look what happened in the in the state of Minnesota. The governor vetoed that as well. Last year, we had a proposal, which was a super clean proposal. It had nothing to do with rate increases or not, by Stephanie Vigil in Colorado. They killed that bill as well. So we know what these companies are capable of as far as lobbies and whatever they do, the scare tactics. And the last one, they always will say, well, we're going to leave. We're going to just get out, pull out. What do you guys say about all that? Both of you.
Oh, the sky is always falling.
Yeah, always.
We raised the minimum wage in the city of Chicago. The sky was going to fall. And we've got robust business engagement here in the city of Chicago and some potential growth. The sky was going to fall when we passed Fair Work Week legislation to make sure women primarily were able to have predictive scheduling, and the sky has not fallen. We just passed tip wage, and something about me really believes that our restaurants are going to do well. As a matter of fact, we look across the country with one fair wage jurisdiction and doing quite all right. Look, we know the playbook. And by the way, I'm not disrespectful to Uber and Lyft. I appreciate them as entities. I want them to do very well. I've got no problem with them doing very well. But if drivers do well, everyone does well. And that's what this is about. We're going to bring them in a very respectful conversation and dialogue. We have dialogue with them already. And we will get to what's a great piece of policy, primarily for drivers in the city of Chicago. I feel good about our efforts. We have a track record in the city of Chicago of doing well. As I stated, the mayor of the city of Chicago campaigned on this. I think we've got the deck stacked in our favor. With that said, we're going to be very respectful of all sides, listen, work together, come up with a great piece of legislation, a substitute ordinance, eventually that's going to include a significant pay increase for riders. It's going to include enhanced protections. It's going to include some address of the deactivation situation, or I will take my name off of the piece of legislation.
Yeah. I also would like to point out, they've had a lot of things happen recently that they didn't necessarily want. We saw the type of thing that they're going to throw at us earlier this year when the state thing passed that made them no longer exempt from being a common carrier in Illinois. So, we got a little taste of their playbook there. But yet they are still operating here, despite the fact of crying that they would not be able to. They are still operating in New York. They're still operating in Seattle. They're still operating in London, where they've had probably the harshest, changes to the industry. And many times Dara has said that their business model can thrive no matter what. They can thrive under any model, basically. So I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be able to thrive using this model. They'll figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, Alderperson Rodriguez quite actually eloquently put it that, I don't want Uber and Lyft to go away either, because there's millions and millions of people are using these services. They may not be qualified to do anything else. They're putting food on their families' tables. I don't want them to go out of business at all. But I think fairness has to come into play at some point, even in the most capitalistic society that we're in. fair. This is not fair, especially what happened with upfront fares now, where there's an opaque algorithm, black box algorithm, that nobody knows why people are getting paid what, right? There is no time, there is no distance involved. We just recreated the wheel. Let's just be happy with what you're getting. I'm like, no, I'm not going for that. So, as you said, Lori, there is a model in Seattle that's been in existence for over 2 years now. And then it spread to the state of Washington, right? I think that's a wonderful, wonderful way to go. Start with the cities, city by city, state by state, start small fires and expand it to states. And like I said, it's my promise to you and Mr. Rodriguez, you can come back with your trophy anytime you like. Open invitation to you. I am supporting this bill and I am supporting this ordinance, and we have a huge, huge audience in Chicago. And I'm going to do everything I can from California. And if you guys need my help at all, you know where to find me. So, but what, Alderperson Rodriguez said is very true. You want them to come to the table. We need to bring these people to the table, because by just taking our sword in the ground and saying my way or the highway is not going to work with these people. They have very strong lobbies. We know what they're doing in Massachusetts. We know what's going to happen, what happened in the past. But all I'm saying is drivers need a win, because we kind of lost a few now, right? But we're throwing punches, and this is part of the war. We can lose a few battles here and there, but I think this is something that you guys should be proud of. And I just want to keep following up, because we do a lot of follow-ups about legislation on our show. And anytime you guys want to show up and give us an update, you're more than welcome. We have a few more minutes. So in closing, Lori and Alderperson Rodriguez, you correctly said that you want to respect them. You want to sit down and talk to these companies and come up with a resolution, or to a point that it's favorable to both sides and the sky is not going to fall. Unfortunately, these companies do not like to play the game that you guys want to play it, right? What have you seen as far as lobbying is concerned? Have you seen like tremendous amount of lobbying already, or what's going on with that?
Not a tremendous amount, actually. They put a lot of effort into trying to kill that state thing that happened earlier this year. They've been pretty quiet on the rideshare ordinance. We do not call for reclassification in the ordinance, but they have been posting ads stating that drivers in Chicago are making $30 an hour after expenses, which we know is just complete nonsense. So they have their little misinformation machine going, but we expect, as usual, the closer we get to the time that it should be passing, the harder they'll be pushing.
Yeah, look, I don't see this as a zero net sum game. I don't see this as a war. Like you said, we need them to do well. But the fact is that, power concedes nothing without a demand. Power concedes nothing without organized communities fighting for themselves. That's what's happening here. Drivers are organized. They're coming to the table. They're pragmatists. They know what they want, and they know what they want to get. And I'm so proud to be working with those drivers through the Gig Alliance and through the People's Lobby. And I'm very, very hopeful that we're going to have a win pretty soon here. We do know that there will be opposition, right? And I'm hopeful we can cut a deal with folks that's a favorable deal for drivers. But if we've got to push for a divided vote, we're going to go that route. And I'm very, very hopeful, and I lean towards the precedent that we've set here in the city of Chicago, being a progressive city, able to pass pro worker legislation. And I'm very excited to continue on that path.
Yeah. So like I said, you both are welcome anytime you guys want. You know where I'm at, and I will do my best, actually. Just blast emails to all our Chicago audience, to go support this ordinance. I mean, look, it's about time. It's about time that something has changed in the favor of the gig worker By the way, I was going to ask you that to start, but I'll ask you at the close. Is this just for rideshare drivers, or is this also for delivery drivers as well, this ordinance?
Yeah, this is actually only for rideshare. The way that we saw it being successful in New York and in Seattle was doing rideshare first and then working on delivery after. So that's
Okay.
the next one we're going to tackle.
Great.
And
So
another thing I'd say is we don't address reclassification here because that's a state issue. It's not a city issue. So just to be clear.
yeah, I'm glad that that's not part of the issue. I mean, look, I love talking to you guys. So I know we have less than a couple of minutes, but if the negotiations came to a halt, right? You guys are hitting a wall, let's say. The lobbying is so intense and whatever they're doing is working. They're scaring the drivers. They're scaring the community, the rider community, saying that, oh, your fares are going to go up double, triple. We're going to pull out all this good stuff that they're going to do. Get ready for it. They're going to do it. But what would you, if they watered this bill down to the point that to walk away, what would that be, Alderperson Rodriguez? What part of the bill would you be willing to let go, and what part you would just say, no, you know what, this goes, I'm going to leave the table?
Oh, Sergio, I'm not going to negotiate on your radio show.
Okay.
What I will say,
I tried.
what I will say is that we have a great group of folks that I'm working with Chicago Gig Alliance. We have a progressive city council, 30 of which have already, or so, have signed on to our legislation. We would have gotten more if I had a little bit more time before I filed the legislation, which is a great start. And we feel good about the road ahead. We're going to work in earnest to get a great bill passed. And I feel good about us making that happen. And listen, before I go, I just wanted to thank you, Sergio, and Chris for having us on. The fact is that we need to organize people in every way we can. And this is one of the ways that seems to be working. And I want to congratulate you for having this platform. And I thank you very much for having me on. Y brevemente en español, briefly in Spanish, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
A toda la gente que maneja y habla español, pues estamos con ustedes a nivel nacional, aquí en Chicago, apoyando que hay mejores ingresos para los que están manejando por Uber y Lyft, y también que hay más seguridad y que ustedes pueden ganar situación de laboral mucho mejor. Muchísimas gracias por oír, and thank you so much for having me on. I don't know if we're done at time, but
look, I'll give you all the time you want. And I was going to ask you how they'll be able to, our community in Chicago will be able to reach you. I know I sent Chris the link for the People's Alliance and People's Alliance USA, and also your offices. I found your link, your website. But if there is something specific about this ordinance that the drivers can come in and voice their opinions, if there's a comment period, whatever that is, right? Send us the links. We'll put it on the show notes. So whoever's going to watch, who's watching it now live and later on by the thousands, at least they have a way to voice their opinions as well and get in touch with you. So, we can do this all day if you guys want it. I'm okay with it.
I'm game. Yeah, I'll send a link. If drivers in the area want to get involved or, want to talk about the ordinance, they can always come to our website. It's chicagogigalliance.org. And there's a place in there to put your information if you're a driver, and somebody from our organization will reach out to you. Great.
Well, I want to thank you both, seriously, from the bottom of my heart. I think this is very near and dear to my heart, really. And I said this and for the last 2 months now, and then whatever ordinance that there is that's helping and the gig workers with higher pay, unjust deactivations, and safety, I'm all for it. So with that said, thank you again for both showing up, and please come back for an update. And Alderperson Rodriguez, if you do pass this thing, you promised you're going to come back. So
absolutely happy to.
Okay, great. Thank you again. We'll keep our audience posted, but please also keep us posted with where the ordinance is at. Again, thank you very much.
All right, thanks for watching. That short little clip was from our live stream, Show Me the Money Club with Sergio and myself, Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Make sure you subscribe, turn on all notifications so you'll be notified when we go live, as well as all of our awesome content. Make sure to check out this video right here, which will take you to the entire live stream, or check out this video right there. All right, drive smart, everyone.